library, and they finally added support for Svelte, and so he's going to present us, but more on that later. Now let's jump right into the changelog to see what's new in Svelte. So we can start from June 28. I'm trying to think like if it is this? Yeah, I think it is the last one. So fix, ensure unknown derived can add themselves as reaction while connected. So this was a bug that I tried to fix so many times, and it always got hand, and it was very complex. And so in the end, we paired on it with Simon, and we still were not able to fix it. But then Simon got a bright idea and actually fixed it. And I'm so happy that this bug is finally out from Svelte, because this basically was a very objectively it is a bit convoluted, but it was a very painful bug for unknown derived. So an unknown derived is a derived that you can create in a module. So if you have a derived directly in a module, so that is created outside any, it's created outside any, I can't remember, outside any, I can speak, outside of any effect, any component, for example, it will be an unknown derived. And they are a bit different from normal derived, because we need to treat them differently if we want to be able to clean them up. Otherwise, we will leak memory. And we also got a new feature, which is get abort signal, which is very cool. Because basically, let me see if I can find it on the docs. You can say, yeah, I also looked for it before, but basically it's very interesting because we get abort signal. I don't know if you know about abort controller. Abort controller, it's a very powerful API, and maybe I can actually show it to you. Abort controller. So the abort controller API, it's something that is very cool. Because basically it allows you to pass down signal, which is not the signal that you think about. It's an abort signal, and this basically it's an event target on which you can register properties, basically users of this abort controller, which typically are stuff that does asynchronous stuff, can register a listener on this, so that they get a callback when the abort controller is aborted. So the flow is basically that you can create an abort controller, you pass the signal around, users of this abort controller will register a callback on the signal, so that when you call abort on the controller, everything that was listening to that controller will shut down basically and will clean themselves. So this, for example, you can use this with fetch. So if you're fetching something, you can pass in a signal, and when the signal is aborted, like this, for example, so let's say that you have this abort button and you do controller.abort, this fetch will be actually aborted by the browser itself. So if you're fetching and you pass a signal to it, then when you abort the controller, that fetch will stop. And this is one of the API. You can technically also, no, actually technically, you can also pass that signal, the same signal, to an event listener, and when you abort, it will unregister that listener. So this, for example, is pretty nice if you want to register a bunch of event listeners, and then with just one single abort controller.abort, you want to remove everything. So that's pretty nice. And when this gets handy is that with this get abort signal, what you can do is that if you use that inside a derived or inside an effect, it will be aborted when that derived or that effect reruns. So this is pretty nice because this way, for example, you can do something like this. You can have a derived and you can await. I mean, right now you cannot await get data for the moment, but the async proposal is still up. So Rich is working on it. I'm pretty sure that we're going to merge it soon, obviously with the experimental flag. But the point is that inside the derived, you might be able to await fetch, pass the signal, and then await the response. And if you want, you can await data in the template right now. But the important bit is that if anything changes inside this, then the old fetch will be aborted, which is a good citizen, like netizen, I can't remember, argument, like, no, argument, a good citizen of the web. Like, you are a good citizen of the web if you do something like this, because we are basically aborting a request to a server that doesn't need to wait for it anymore, basically. This is because on the server, if you try to get the request body, for example, of an aborted request, it will actually fail, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, you're basically sending less information around, which is always good. And so this is pretty cool because you can get the abort signal, and even inside your utility functions, if you know that they will be used inside the derived or inside an effect, you can use this get abort controller, which is pretty nice. We also had a simplify props. So from time to time, Rich looks at the code and say, this could be simplified, and it just go ahead and simplify how we do. This is also pretty exciting, a very nice feature. Add parent hierarchy to Svelte meta object. So this is something that was kind of already present in Svelte 4, and we kind of lost it, but this is basically the first step for the Svelte DevTools, because inside this Svelte meta object, which, if I'm not mistaken, these are basically on elements managed by Svelte. So I might be mistaken, but we can actually try it. So if we do this, and if we take a look at this, inspect meta, we can store it as a global variable. And now, I might be mistaken, but if I do temp1.svelte meta, you can see that you have information about what the parent of this line basically is. In this case, it's null, but you also get the line of code. So you know that this Svelte meta, it's inside up.svelte, column 0, line 5. And I suppose if you have a component, be cool, it should also show you. So if I do import component from component.svelte, and I do component like this, I don't know if, oh, yeah, debugger, sorry, is not showing up. Oh, I think it's the debugger that stopped. So let me disable breakpoint. Sorry, I was debugging stuff. Global listener, breakpoints. Yeah, here it is. Breakpoints. Can I not pause the breakpoints? Yeah, I can do this. I refresh the page. This should show this. And if we go here, where it is, cool. And if we store it as a global variable, temp1.svelte meta, yeah, now we also have a parent, and the parent is a component, like that's named component inside up.svelte on line 6 and column 0. The type is component, and so like you basically get all this information of what is rendering which part of the DOM. So this can be used for Svelte DevTools, And obviously we will also add more information on this later, probably. So pretty cool. We have Svelte 5.35.2, which is just a bump to ESWrap. This was to fix a bug that was present in ESWrap. It was fixed in ESWrap, which is the library that we use to convert our JavaScript AST to an actual file. And now we needed to bump ESWrap. Account for mounting when select option in attribute effect. So this was just a small bug where after a change that didn't have a changelog, the select was not working anymore. Like if you had a default option, it was not selecting it anymore. It's a simple bug. Do not proxify the value assigned to a derived. So since now you can assign to a derived, there was this small bug where a derived by default is not deeply reactive. So if you have an object inside the derived and you change one property of that derived, you reassign it, you will, like other effects and derived will not get notified. The problem was that if you assigned an object to a derived, then that object would have been proxified. And so it would have been problematic because then you will get a proxy for something that should not have been proxified. Abort and reschedule effect processing after state change in user effect. This was another annoying bug that I was dealing with and I was not able to fix. There's a lot of them, but basically the point, like this is also pretty, it's a very weird edge case, but basically the point is what Svelte does is that when there is a new effect, there is a root effect, which is the one that you can also create with $effect.root, that gets scheduled. So that root effect, it's basically like the parent of all the effects. And from that moment on, we have basically a graph of all the effects. And so when you schedule one effect down below, every effect that is in the path to the root will get scheduled again. And then we loop over every effect through the branch and we schedule them. And then once we schedule them, we start from the bottom and start to executing this, and then we check, is this dirty? And then we execute this, and then we check this, it's this dirty, and we execute this. What happened is that once you schedule all of them, if the last effect was making the effect above dirty, it should not rerun immediately because that could cause problems. So the point is that after you write, if you are rescheduling another effect, when this changes, instead of just rerun this and run it, it should basically restart from the beginning, which is a bit wasteful, but it was causing bugs. So I hope it's clear. I think it's not, but it's fine. Associate sources in Spring, Twin, Svelte Map, Svelte Sep with correct reaction. So this was another problem, but basically one of the problem is that so if you create a source, if you create a state inside a derived, if you create that, what happens is that that source, that state, will not participate in the dependency of that derived because you are just creating it inside the derived, and so it doesn't make sense. And so we have some structure in place to avoid that. However, there is one function that avoid this path, and it was called inside Svelte Map. There is one extra problem though. The fact that Svelte Map actually needs to be able to do that because we create sources, we create signals for the object inside Svelte Map only when you access them. So if you create a Svelte Map, by default, let me show you. So svelte.dev/playground, when you create a Svelte Map, so let's say that I do import Svelte Map from Svelte reactivity. So, oh, whoa, what happened? So let's say that I do const map is equal new Svelte map, like this. And I can even add, I don't know, 1, 1, 2, 2, right? So I'm basically creating a Svelte map that has 1 that's corresponding to 1 and 2 that's corresponding to 2. Now, in this moment, we are not creating signals yet. And the reason is that, like, if you never read this map in a reactive context, we actually don't need to create a signal. So if I do console.log map.has1, this is true, so I'm logging true, but I actually don't need to create a signal up until this moment, because I never access this map, I never access has inside a reactive context, so I don't access it in the template or inside an effect. And so to save memory and performance, we don't need to create a resource, because this line of code will never rerun, even if map changes. However, if I do this, then I am creating a signal. The problem is that now the signal that I just created needs to actually participate in the effect. Because if I do button on click like this, and I do map.delete 1, delete. Now, since I've used this map inside the effect, when I click this, it needs to rerun. So now the effect, the state that has been created inside this effect actually needs to participate in the effect, dependencies, right? And so this means that we kind of needed both, right? And so, because if you do this, then we don't need, like if you do map.delete 1, we don't want this effect to run again, because like you're just creating a map inside here and then reading, but then writing. So this is a change that we made so that you get less infinite loops inside effect. So if you do something like this, it should not trigger twice, but if you move it outside, it should trigger twice. So just by declaring it in a different context, it should change the thing. And so we actually fixed this bug because we were able to like keep track of the actual, like the current dependency, like the current effect where Svelte map is created inside the constructor, and then we check it when you access one of the value. So yeah, this was a fun bug to fix that I was actually able to fix. So fix, reevaluate the derived props during tear down. So you might remember sometimes ago we had a breaking change where basically now if you're accessing something inside the tear down, you actually get the old value back. So let's say that I do const count is equal to state 0, and then you access console.log count, and then I console.log count here, and then I do map is equal to count plus plus. But oh, it's a const let. So as you can see, whenever I click inside, inside the cleanup, I get the same value as before. Cleanup. So you get the same value of when you read it. And the reason for this is because otherwise, if you access this inside a component while the component is unmounting, what could happen is that if you wrap the component with an if, then the value that you read here would not respect that if, and so that's why we did it. it's a bit of a weird situation. We are trying to figure out if we should keep this behavior or change it in some other way, but we'll figure out. For the moment, the bug was that derived did not have this logic, and so now they have it. So it's fine. Simplify reaction source ownership tracking. This was basically and simplify internal component pop. So these were PR that were sprouted from this, because while looking at how to deal with this kind of stuff, Rich was actually realized that we could simplify this kind of stuff, and so it got to work and it simplified how we are tracking this stuff. So it makes the whole code base more maintainable. So yeah, okay, so that's it for Svelte. Let's see if we have a new release for adapter Cloudflare, and we do have deprecate platform context in favor of platform CTX to align with Cloudflare naming convention. So before Cloudflare, you could access the context, but they actually renamed it, and so we say, okay, why not rename it? And then update dependency to Kit. Let me see. Oh, we have 3 new releases of Svelte Kit. So we have don't bundle svelte.js.kit, force up / modules to be bundled, and re-add Svelte Kit to optimize that exclude. So this whole thing, like, there is a series of PRs that are going on the Kit repo, and all of this is because some libraries actually uses is instance of error or is instance of redirect to check if it's an instance of redirect or error inside their library. And the problem is that these classes needs to be the same instance for the instance to be if you want instance of to be correct, they literally need to be the same instance. So if you have a same class that is named the same, it has the same properties, but is declared in a different file, it will not work. And so we are basically trying to figure out how to make this work, because we don't want to, initially svelte.js.kit was bundled, and this was causing this problem. So initially also the library were bundled, but then this was creating problem with plugin Svelte, and so now we don't bundle Kit, but then $up needs to be bundled, and then svelte.js.kit needs to be excluded. So it's a mess. This thing, it's a real mess, and it's one of the biggest problem of bundling, in my opinion. But it is what it is. They're working hard to fix this, and I have no idea of how to fix it. I have some experience with bundling, but this is high-level stuff that I'm kind of scared of. We have a new release for adapter node, remove unnecessary static directory serving middleware. Static directory serving middleware. So I think before there was a middleware to serve static, and now it's not needed anymore, I think. We have 4 new release of Vite plugins Svelte, and we also have a new major, so please check out. So we have a couple of pre-release, and then we have the major, so you can ignore the rest. And we also have a new release of Vite plugins Svelte 5, because there was a small bug where some plugins could pollute the Svelte config. But this is the important one. So please update Vite plugins Svelte to 6 for your libs and your apps. There are a bunch of deprecation. Node 18 is not supported anymore. Exports map to use default export. Supported via require ESM in Node 20.19 plus. So if you want to import CJS files, you can do through require ESM. This is also removing experimental advanced row queries. So basically, like, you could do something like file.svelte row and then pass like style.css to only get the styles, and then pass the I don't know, script.css to only get the JavaScript. It was something that was rarely used. I used in one of my library, but like, it's fine. I can just write a plugin for that. But yeah, if you were using this kind of stuff, I doubt, but yeah, exactly. That SvelteKit bundling fix is big. Thanks to Eltiger Kino, I think it's, I can never pronounce it correctly. Enrico is spelling God truth. Let me highlight this message, which I'm sure it will not work. I don't know why my WebSocket doesn't work. It's fine. Also, we have a new Vite peer dependency because we recently got Vite 7, and this means that you can now also try out roll down Vite. So roll down Vite is Vite that is using roll down instead of roll up. So now you can do it. If you want to try out, you can try it, but roll down Vite, it's in beta and they are not yet there with bundling, like with reshaking actually. So like, do it with cautious. You can use the row feature for Markdown, I think. The row feature is actually like just to get the literal file content, and sometimes it's useful, and you can do it absolutely for Markdown. But what this removed was advanced row queries, which was something that was specific for Vite plugins Svelte. So if you wanted to get some weird stuff, like basically you could get the same behavior by rendering the component on the server and then picking stuff from the rendering, from compiling the component. So you get file.row, file.svelte question mark row, and you extract the, you basically like compile it, and once you compile it, you extract the style, more or less. It's a bit weird, but it works. Yeah, okay, so try out Vite plugins Svelte 6. There's a bunch of stuff, not much breaking changes, but you can then use Vite 7 and roll down Vite, which is nice. We also have 2 new releases for Vite plugins Svelte Inspector, which is basically the same, and it's also using Vite environmental API internally. This is basically the inspector. It's what allows you to inspect your Svelte application. So this basically goes hand to hand with Vite plugins Svelte. So you will never update this manually, basically. We also have 3 new releases of SV, which is our CLI. Use plain text SVG favicon, add static folder to preterignore, add drizzle folder to preterignore if preter is installed when adding drizzle add-on, update static to static in preterignore, update templates to Vite 7 and Vite plugins Svelte 6. So now if you create a new project, you will get Vite 7 and Vite plugins Svelte 6, which is nice. I don't think we have anything else. Let's see if we have anything on the tracker. We obviously have quality hydration warning in test suite, make effect scheduling more efficient. Yeah, this is probably something that Rich was doing. Add print function, we already talked about this. I'm pretty excited about this. We also have discussion, which is asynchronous Svelte toolbar, and tenants. Yeah, there's not much more here, but there should be for SvelteKit. I mean, you already know, like, we just recently dropped the PR for remote function, so you can actually technically use it with the experimental flag. we really hope to merge that soon so that you can, like Mike is saying, that he cannot wait for remote function. And I agree. It's absolutely like, it's a wonderful thing. And I, I literally like can't wait for this. Like this will be game changing next week. I cannot wait for those to drop. That's pretty cool. But now let's actually switch to something more interesting. And let me switch to the control room here. Let's switch to something more interesting because we have Abram that will talk about uh, Ark UI. So let me switch to this scene here where Abram is here. Let me switch back your audio. Okay, how is doing, Abram?
I am doing good.
All right, guys. So Aaron will present Ark UI because they recently launched, like they added support for Svelte, and so I'm gonna phase myself out so that you can actually enjoy Ark UI. See you in a bit.
Hi guys, I'm Abraham from Ark UI, and I'll be presenting Ark UI Svelte to you today. Um, so Ark UI is also made by the team in charge of Chakra UI, and before Chakra UI was like a React library, and then we had some Vue members in the community who wanted to make Chakra UI Vue, but then there was a lot of duplication. We create new components in Chakra UI React. You have to do the same thing in Chakra UI Vue, different logic, trying to sync up both at the same time. So we came up with Zag.js, which uses state machines to have agnostic logic. Then React, Solid, Vue can then create adapters that kind of use the same logic for all the frameworks. So when there's an issue in Vue, for example, then this means there's also an issue in React and Solid. And then we get to solve the problem in just one place, and the problem is fixed for basically all the frameworks. So Arc UI, so the Zag is more very low level. In fact, some people don't like the syntax. It's kind of everything is open, while Arc UI is then built on Zag to be more developer friendly. And so we've had React, Solid, and Vue for quite a while, and we've just released the Svelte um, adapter for Arc UI. So you basically just need to install Arc UI Svelte, and then this is a slider component just for example. This is our controlled value and all the parts. Arc UI has over 45 components right now, a lot of them, and is very actively maintained. It means we kind of add more components every now and then. So for example, this is an accordion. We have the concept of parts, the roots, which embodies everything. Trigger, this is an item, this is another item, this is the item content. And it's headless. It means you can use any styling solution you want. If it's vanilla CSS, if it's Tailwind, CSS in JS, anything you want, you're basically allowed to. You can use it to style. So we have data attribute on every part of all the components. For example, this is an accordion. So every part of the component has the data scope of an accordion and then its data parts. So you can use this to style every single part of the components in whatever styling solution you used. And this is like a state attributes. So it means you want to style it, if it's open or closed, you can do this however you want. So whatever styling solution you are used to, whichever one you prefer, it's left to you because style Arc UI comes with like close to 0 styles. You can also compose components anyhow you want. For example, this is a popover, and we are deciding to use a button as our trigger here. This is how we do it. So whatever elements you want to use is quite very, very, very flexible. However you want to do it, there's no limitations to it. In terms of animation, Ark UI uses this concept where even when an element is closed or is open, we delay the mounting so that you can apply any animations you want to make your your components look more user friendly. In terms of component state, every component has like context so that you can have access to the internal state. I mean, ideally, is like um, very simple by default, but you might want to have access to more methods or more states that is going in between. So you have context, and every component has this, so you can access the full power and like make it look differently from like the demos that you see on the docs. So any snippet you see on the docs, you can just open it in Stack Bliss and play around with it anyhow you wish. So yeah, I guess that's all I'll say about Ark UI Svelte for now. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I lost my I lost my control room, so I could not switch back. Thank you very much. I'm very excited because I know that, as you said, like Chakra UI is a big player in the React ecosystem, and having something that it is agnostic and it's like maintained by a big team for Svelte, it's something that a lot of people were lamenting a bit. I mean, to be fair, like there are other libraries out there that are also quite similar in syntax. They're also very good, but like I think more like libraries is always a good thing. So, and I also personally I think I enjoy like you say that a lot of people don't like the syntax of this, but I think like it's actually pretty nice the fact that you have components with the dots syntax inside. I think it's pretty nice.
Oh no, I was referring to Zag, the lower level.
Oh, okay, yeah, exactly. Sorry, I thought you meant this thing because I think this is actually pretty nice. Yeah, I actually I've heard of Zag, and I know that it's quite because I think like it's heavily using machine.
Yeah, state
machine. State machine. Yeah, I can't remember. All right, thank you very much. Please, guys, check out Ark UI if you need a component library. As you can see, like it was like it is also pretty flexible in terms of styling. So please check out if you need some valid component library. And thank you, Abram, for presenting them. And all right, but guys, I'll see. Like that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.